I'm Alex Baker, joined today by the man, the myth, the legend, Ship My Money DFS, known on the down low as Adam Scherer. Ship, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Nice 6 game ride. I enjoyed these like 6 to 8 game slates, so pretty excited about that. I feel like normally when we do our show together, there's like 10 or 11 games, and you can kind of get in the weeds a little bit. But I enjoyed the 6 gamers. How was your New Year's?
Not bad, man. Ringing it in Mexico. Missed a few days of NBA DFS because they don't let you play down there. But what did I miss? Anything big?
Not for me. No.
Okay. Well, fair enough. So looking forward to diving back into it. How about you, man? How was your New Year's?
It was good. Relaxing. Didn't do anything really fun. Just kind of stayed in and made sure I stayed up till midnight, so I didn't feel totally pathetic.
Man, that sounds pretty responsible. So let us know your New Year's stories in the chat here. We're going to talk some DFS. So tonight's slate, pretty good one. I mean, we got the Wizards and the Knicks on the slate, so what's not to love?
Yeah, and anytime you can look at rotations for the Wizards, the Knicks, and the Pelicans on the same day, you have to enjoy it.
I forgot about the Pels. So 3 of these 12 teams that we got are all, top DFS teams for sure. They just a lot of talent. So we'll break it out today. Who do you think the best value is tonight? Is there any guy that's really jumping out at you?
I think that the Elfrid Payton news is really big because you have basically a minimum priced or close to a minimum priced Frank Ntilikina if he's out. But I think that in terms of like actual non-Ntilikina NBA players, Marcus Smart looks like a really good value to me. Just because assuming he joins the starting lineup with Kemba out.
Right on, man. Yeah, I think Frank is someone I'm looking at because of that news that Payton missed shoot around. Dennis Smith participated in shoot around, so most likely we got a 2-man rotation. Frank starting, Dennis filling in. So I think either of those guys are fine. And then Marcus Smart and some of the other Celtics are really standing out too. That's our first game of the night. We got Atlanta versus Boston. Boston, a big favorite tonight. So John Collins has been back for a few games at this point. How does that change your take on the Hawks now that he's back?
It doesn't change too much for me because Trae Young's still going to get his. John Collins should be the second highest usage guy on the team, at least among the players that are playing big minutes. The biggest change is just to Jabari Parker, where I don't think we have a really good feel yet of how his minutes are going to look, but so far he's basically just been playing the backup to Collins. We haven't seen Collins playing a lot at the 5, so it's taken minutes away from Parker, and that obviously, Parker for a lot of the season has been one of the only pieces on Atlanta that we've actually been interested in rostering. So I think that's the biggest change for me. I don't think that in terms of production, it makes a really big difference for that many guys. So it's more just mapping out the minutes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Jabari Parker, his usage is 21 on the year. John Collins is at 22. So really, that's not going to move the needle a ton, having one over the other on the court. So Trae Young still having pretty good usage over the last few. But I'm finding it difficult to get to any Hawks, to be honest, because there's only like 4 guys that are really playable, in my opinion. We got John Collins, Hunter, Herter, and Young. The rest of the guys don't seem to be getting enough minutes to really be under consideration. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm seeing too. On FanDuel, they obviously look a little bit better just because FanDuel's pricing is softer, but that's the case for all teams. So relative to the field, there's still nothing that like really sticks out. Trae Young on FanDuel at 8,800 is a really good price point for him. And the same can be said at 9,200 on DraftKings. But when you start comparing him to other guys like, Russell Westbrook and Damian Lillard at the same price point, it makes him pretty much just a tournament consideration for me. Same goes for the guys like Collins and Hunter and Herter. I mean, in large field tournaments, if you wanted to take a shot at like a $3,700 Jabari Parker, that's not the craziest thing to me, since I think that there is still some wiggle room on his minutes. Like we don't have enough games for me to feel really confident that he only plays, 16 to 18 minutes. But even though I think that's the most likely outcome, but that's still not a play that I would want tons of exposure to. It's just someone who I think is at least more talented than their price tag.
That's a good point. I mean, Jabari Parker, sub 4K across the industry. This seems like if he was getting the minutes, he'd be worth it. But so if we go that John Collins plays some minutes at center, I guess that would open up some minutes for Parker at power forward.
Right. So it's like I projected mostly. I gave Damian Jones like 6 minutes. He could very easily DNP, or you could just see Alex Len get in foul trouble or something like that. They have a 3-center rotation with Fernando, Len, and Jones, but none of those guys really play consistent minutes from game to game. So it's really easy to see how Collins could end up just playing at the 5 and Parker getting more minutes over one of those traditional centers.
Yeah, definitely. That seems like it could pay off, but it might be a little bit too contrary. And for me, there's some safer options in the value range, I think. On Boston, a much more appealing team for fantasy. They're projected for 117 points. That's one of the higher totals that we'll see these days. And we got Kemba Walker out, which is going to improve the usage of some of the other guys on the team. Marcus Smart is the guy you mentioned. He's 5.1K on DraftKings and FanDuel. And you mentioned that he's a top option. What about Brown, Tatum, and Hayward?
I think that they're all good options just because they're playing the Hawks and they should play big minutes. But the rest of those guys, the price tags have come up a bit for this matchup, especially on DraftKings. Like on FanDuel, it's a little bit, again, it's softer pricing, but I think beyond Smart, Hayward's the one that stands out the most to me. He's only 6,900 on FanDuel and 7K on DraftKings. Since last season, without Kyrie or Kemba on the floor, he has a 20.6% usage rate, 24.5% assist percentage. He should play into the mid-30s in minutes in a good matchup here. So Smart, I like just because his salary is really low and he should get more minutes. Hayward, I think, is a little underpriced. And then Tatum and Jaylen Brown, it's not that I think they're too expensive. It's just that relative to the other guys on Boston that are in the same exact really good matchup and a little bit cheaper, I don't have them projected that much higher than like Hayward at a little bit cheaper price point.
Yeah, I think that these guys stand out, but they're probably going to just be in the mix. And we got a great matchup and the opportunity is good, so these guys are pretty good plays, but prices are pretty high for them. One guy that people in chat are asking about is Brad Wanamaker with Kemba Walker out. Maybe that opens up some point guard minutes. Do you see Wanamaker being in play tonight?
I think he's in play. He's not like a huge priority for me. I have him at 24 minutes right now. He's 3,900 on DraftKings, 3,500 on FanDuel. That makes him a good point per dollar play, but I don't have him at enough raw points where I expect him to be like my, one of my highest owned guys, but he's certainly in the mix for me. I think it'll just be important to set rules to make sure you're not getting like too many of the ball handlers from Boston all in the same lineup.
Yeah, sorry, there's all this chat about the mic. I'm working on it here. I'm not sure what happened. I might have accidentally switched some settings, but stay tuned on that. I'll try to fix it as we go along here. But we can't wait. There's too much DFS to play here. So first of all, we are brought to you by Yahoo DFS. Yahoo, they've really been upping their game in fantasy NBA this year. So I've been seeing a lot of higher prize pools, today being no exception. We got this 60K baller. You can enter that up to 135 times. So pretty much my recommendation is if you're a small grinder, you want to kind of work your way up on the easiest contests, and the NBA baller is definitely probably the easiest contest in the industry. So I definitely recommend playing on Yahoo if you're interested in signing up and somehow you don't have an account. Make sure to check out our Yahoo article on the site. There's a link and we'll drop it in chat as well. Miami at Orlando. So Miami, we got pretty much a full house here aside from Justice Winslow. In the past few games, we've seen some Tyler Hero games, some Kendrick Nunn. Overall, not. And Derek Jones has been playing huge minutes, which is somewhat appealing, but he doesn't seem to put up enough fantasy points to really crack rosters. Which one of these guys are you really honing in for the Heat?
I think that it's a tough matchup for Miami, but the pricing, especially on DraftKings, is really favorable. This is one of the only teams that I think the pricing looks a lot better on DraftKings than it does on FanDuel. You have 7,600 on Bam, 7,800 on Butler, and 4,400 on Kendrick Nunn. Those guys all look like pretty decent values to me. I'm expecting, you expect 36 or around 36 minutes for Bam and Butler. Kendrick Nunn's minutes are more volatile, but he did play 38 minutes yesterday. It's just a matter of you kind of get some hot hand situations between him, Tyler Hero, and Goran Dragic, but I have Nunn projected for 32 minutes, and at 4,400, he's a pretty decent option too. So it's not that I expect Miami to be a really high scoring team or a really high scoring game. They only have a 105 team total, but you do know that the minutes are going to be there for Bam and for Butler. Nunn will at least get a chance at big minutes if he's playing reasonably well, which is something that's always nice in tournaments. And they're all reasonably high usage guys. They all contribute some peripherals as well.
Yeah, I mean, Nunn is he has a pretty good the fantasy points per minute, and he's dirt cheap, 4,400 on DraftKings and FanDuel, so he stands out. Although now that Dragic is back in the rotation fully, at the start of the year we were seeing Nunn really play maybe 28 minutes, but he's been averaging 30 over the last 5. Which one do you think is a better estimate?
I think 30 is where I'm pretty comfortable going, that 30 to 32 range. It's basically the way I approach the situation is that I kind of want it. I don't want to be taking some huge stand on any one of those guys because I think the minutes between them are really dependent on game flow. But if I can get them all to a point where they project reasonably well for their salaries, I'm pretty happy with it. So with the way my projections are looking right now, if I go 32 for Nunn, 26 on Hero, 28 on Dragic, they all look like pretty decent point per dollar options without any one of them being someone that I expect to be my highest owned guy on the slate. But it's just that I think they're appealing because if Nunn's playing really well, the minutes are there for him to get. Same goes for Hero, same goes for Dragic.
Makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, you're not caring as much if they get the extra minutes if they're performing poorly because your lineup's already sunk. So,
right.
Makes a lot of sense. Derek Jones is getting the minutes, but as I mentioned, the production is kind of questionable. How are you feeling about Jones?
Yeah, it's just not. I prefer him if I ever go to Jones. It's in faster paced games against Washington type teams where there's going to be there should be a lot of turnovers, a lot of fast break opportunities. Orlando's not really that team. Should be a pretty slow game between the two, and Jones isn't someone that's really going to come through in half court sets. So I have him at 28 minutes, but he's not looking particularly appealing.
Okay, gotcha. So Jimmy Butler. He is reasonably priced, and I don't think there are too many really high-priced guys to go after. You see yourself landing on Butler or Bam?
Yeah, I like both of them. Butler is extra appealing on DraftKings because not only is he $900 less expensive, $700 less expensive than he is on FanDuel, but you get the guard forward eligibility, so it's really easy to get him into a lot of lineups, depending on what you need. Bam is a little bit tougher since he's only center eligible on DraftKings. He's a power forward on FanDuel, which is nice. But 7,600 for a guy who in competitive games is playing 36 plus minutes and contributes rebounds, assists, and can score, I think is a nice price point.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, Bam averaging 37 minutes, 37.4 over the last 15, which is insane for a center. So, I mean, you got to like that. Orlando, kind of an interesting situation today where Aaron Gordon is questionable, but he participated in shoot around. So right now I'm just assuming that he'll be in. Isaac is out for a couple months. So the main consequences of that I'm projecting are maybe we get a Wes Iwundu start. He's not really a fantasy play, but that would equal more minutes for Evan Fournier and Terrence Ross. Terrence Ross is averaging 28 over the last 5, Fournier 34. So these guys look like decent options, but Miami is not a team to really target players against in DFS. Are you landing on any of these Orlando guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically projecting the rotation to be about the same as it was when Gordon was out and Isaac was in, just obviously giving Isaac's minutes to Gordon, assuming Gordon plays. I think that, Fournier does play big minutes. The price tag has come up a bit, and it's not a very appealing matchup against Miami. Only a 103 team total for Orlando. So I think that Fournier and Vooch look like the two best options to me from Orlando, just because the minutes should be there. They should lead the team in usage, and in the case of in Vooch's case, he's a really good per minute producer. But pretty tough matchup, and it's just tough to prioritize these guys over anyone else for me. So, or other guys at their positions. So I think it's more of secondary options. Like obviously, Terrence Ross can outperform $4,000. He's not going to do it all that often, but the opportunity will be there for him. The same can be said for, like a $4,900 Markelle Fultz, but it's just not a particularly appealing matchup on a slate where there are several good games to target, I think.
Yeah, I have to agree. Plus, I don't think Jonathan Isaac is really that high a usage player, so having him replaced by someone else isn't going to move the needle a ton for these guys. But
yeah, I would expect the biggest bump for guys to be in terms of rebounding, but that obviously is going to mostly be towards like Vooch and Gordon.
So we just got some news that Marcus Smart is starting for the Celtics as we expected. We did have an interesting question in chat that was asking if you can play Smart and Wanamaker in the same lineup.
I would lean towards not doing it because I don't think they close together. Like they're both cheap enough where they could have they could both pay off their salaries. So I think it's more of a personal preference thing than anything. But usually my tiebreaker is, do I think that they can close together? And for them to close together, it would mean that one of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, or Gordon Hayward's not closing, which outside of injury or fouling out or something would be really weird. So I would lean towards not having them together, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And the only reason why maybe you'd consider it is if really, I'm only playing Wanamaker on FanDuel, and if there were no other $3,500 point guards, you consider it. But I mean, Frank is $3,500, I assume, and much more appealing option. I guess he's $3,900, but yeah, not too appealing there. Portland at Washington. First I gotta do my reads here. So first of all, if you can click the like button, much appreciated. And we're not allowed to offer incentives anymore, but I can offer disincentives to not click it. So if you don't click it, I mean, you're not going to win any money in DFS tonight. So please click that like button. It will improve the prognostication abilities of us greatly. And the other announcement is we have a special deal going on right now. If you're not a member, you can get 20 days of the all access membership for only $20. That's a discount of more than 50%. I think it's about 2/3 off that 20-day period. So we don't offer these special deals very often. It's just for holidays, and I got a little New Year's thing. So if your New Year's resolution is to make more money playing DFS, make sure to take advantage of that 2020 deal here. Portland at Washington. Portland's favored by 7. Surprisingly, that's not more, given that Washington, man, they just not in great shape these days. Bradley Beal is questionable. Most of the regulars are out. But Jordan McRae is back. He's someone that has been having pretty high usage, gets assists. What I'm kind of picturing is if Beal is out, then Jordan McRae is pretty much a lock button play. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that even if Beal's in, I think McRae is okay, just because he still will get his opportunities. He still probably plays around 30 minutes. But if Beal's out, tons of usage should go to McRae. It helps to solidify his minutes. He looks to score every opportunity he gets, and that's what the Wizards need, especially if Beal sits. So he goes from being, kind of a mediocre secondary option to a priority if Beal sits.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he's been coming off the bench recently, which limits his minutes a bit. But if Beal sits, maybe we see a start. If Beal plays, I'm trying to do the math here, so he would actually look like a pretty good play. I mean, Portland's defense isn't particularly good, but Beal's minutes have been a little bit down. He did miss a couple games. Do you think that's a change in the rotation at all, or is that just kind of like he was injured?
I think it had to do with the injury and also the scores. 2 games against Detroit, he didn't play that many minutes. He left that game with the injury, but they were also just getting absolutely murdered. And then last game against Orlando, he left with like 4 minutes left in the game. So the way I handled it was that I did project him for a couple minutes less than, like, for the season, he's been averaging 36 to 37. I projected him at 34 just to try and account for the fact that the Wizards might take it a little bit easy and not run him into the ground. He was on pace for 34 last game. But even at 34 minutes at his price tag, that's enough for me to get him in. He's averaged 1.22 DraftKings points per minute this year. Portland is one of the least efficient defenses in the league. It should be a pretty fast-paced game. So if he's in, I think Beal's a good play at his salary.
So we just got a gift from the fancy gods here. Beal just got ruled out, and they announced that Troy Brown actually getting a start for once. So that would make the lineup. So we got, Isaiah Thomas, Troy Brown, Gary Payton. Then we got Mahimi and maybe Jonathan Williams.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you'd anticipate?
Yeah, that is what I would anticipate. It obviously changes the slate entirely because now you have a ton of usage and a ton of minutes going to the Washington second and third string.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So Troy Brown, now that he's starting, I think that this 31 minute per game average over the last 5, maybe that would turn into the low to mid 30s, like 33. He's about a fantasy point a minute guy. So if that was true, he would be one of the best plays on the slate. What would be your projection for Troy Brown?
Yeah, I think you get 30, 32 minutes. He's averaged, without Beal on the floor this year, he's averaged a little over a DraftKings point per minute. 22% usage without Beal. So I think it is a big bump for him in terms of solidifying his minutes, but also just in terms of his production. It's really been a big difference for him, like when he comes off the bench this year compared to when he starts. But obviously that's talking about when he's starting alongside Beal. He's done pretty well when he's out there as one of the primary options, and that'll be the case here. So with his price having just started to come back down, I think that he's a really good option. We already talked about McRae being a priority here with Beal out. I also think that Gary Payton becomes really interesting. His minutes have been down lately, but his primary skill set is that he's a really good defender. And now you have all the minutes opening up from Beal being out, combined with going against a backcourt that has CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard. I think that there's a pretty good chance you see extra minutes from Gary Payton compared to what we've been seeing.
That'd be pretty nice because he's cheap, only 3,800 on FanDuel. If you put him at 24 minutes, he would be a pretty good value there. What I'm seeing, I'm looking through these game logs on Popcorn Machine, and in the 2 games that Beal missed, Jordan McRae played 29 and 34 minutes. Troy Brown in one of them had 5 fouls and played 28 minutes. So in the other game, he played 37. So that would make me kind of think 33, and he'd be a really good play. As far as priorities, I'm kind of landing on first McRae, then Brown. And then one guy I'm interested in is Ish Smith. I think versus Portland, they play McCollum and Lillard, as well as another point guard in Simons. So I could see them running out some Ish and Isaiah Thomas lineups and it not being that big a liability. How would you rate Ish Smith today?
Yeah, I agree with that. And then to also add to that point, they can really, really easily go with like Isaiah, Ish, and then Payton, because you just put Isaiah on Bazemore and let him stand and watch Bazemore not get the ball. And then you have, Payton and Ish defending Lillard and McCollum. So against Portland, there's really no reason that Ish and Thomas can't play minutes alongside each other. So I think that even with Beal in, I had some interest at a $4,200 ish on DraftKings. Now I have even more interest because I think it helps to solidify his minutes, if nothing else. And obviously, he should get more offensive opportunities. So I think the usage rate goes up for Isaiah. I think that Ish is more likely to get into the mid-20s in minutes as well.
Nice. So as far as priorities, how would you rate these guys from best to worst here?
McRae, Brown, Payton on FanDuel especially, Ish, Isaiah, And also on DraftKings, don't sleep on passing sneaks. He's $3,200. He's splitting center minutes with Jan Mahinmi, which normally means like 20 to 22 minutes.
Yeah, this is shaping up to be the game of the night for DFS, I think, just based on this injury news. So how you handle this will be pretty essential. As far as groups, I don't think I would land on Isaiah Thomas, but you probably don't want him and Ish together. I'm also seeing maybe Garrison Matthews and Gary Payton you wouldn't really want together, because in one game, Matthews played a bunch of minutes and the other Payton played a bunch of minutes. Are there any groups you'd say here?
Yeah, I was going to say Matthews, Payton, I think makes sense. Probably, I don't think I'll set an Ish and Isaiah rule, but I'll set like a max 2 out of Ish, Isaiah, McRae, and Payton, most likely.
Okay, cool. So no lineups with all of them, all
Right,
of
yeah.
the Wizards.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say out of those guys, I would do max 2 or max 3 because, like, again, trying to think about the closing lineup, you're going to have one of the centers. You'll most likely have Troy Brown at the 4, and then you'll have 3 of Ish, Isaiah, Payton, Matthews, McRae, basically probably whoever's playing the best.
All right, so it's pretty good advice. You probably definitely want at least 2 Wizards, probably 3, in your lineup tonight. At least on DraftKings, where value is a little bit harder to come by. So I think how you handle this will be really important. I just updated the projections, so make sure that. Actually, that was pretty much the news that I think we can expect to hear before lock. I think the other big news is in one of the later games.
Yeah, and it's much less important now that we have all that value.
That's a good point. Yeah. So
is not really the guy that you're excited the roster. He's more of the cheap necessity.
That's right. Yeah, and now not even a necessity really.
Right.
So that will be something to. If you don't love Frank Ntilikina, now you're off the hook. Portland on the other side. I mean, I would think the Wizards would be basically the best matchup in the league, but it looks like everyone's priced up to a point where no one's really standing out to me a ton. How about you? Are you landing on maybe Lillard or McCollum or anyone else?
Yeah, I think more favorable pricing on FanDuel. Like I really like the spot, obviously, for Dame, for McCollum, for Whiteside. But on DraftKings, they did a good job of pricing up Dame to 9,700. We finally got Whiteside up to 9,500. On FanDuel, Whiteside's $200 less expensive than he is on FanDuel or on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Lillard's $400 less expensive. Lillard's the 3rd highest pick and roll possession guy in the league. Washington's been the 4th least efficient defense defending that. And then, of course, overall, they're just a really inefficient defense too. So I think it sets up really well for Lillard and McCollum in the way that they play. I do like that Terry Stotts has been staggering their minutes basically since Melo joined the team as well. It just gives more upside to both of those guys when 100% of their minutes aren't coming alongside each other. And then Whiteside, it's a good rebounding matchup. Washington's allowed the 8th most rebounds per game over the last month. They're in the middle of the pack in offensive rebounds allowed, which you would like that to be a little bit higher when you're talking about Whiteside. But he's been a 1.4 DraftKings point per minute guy this year. He's playing like 34 minutes in competitive games. So I think that they're all good options. It's just a matter of what site you're playing on and exactly how they're priced relative to some other guys.
Yeah, I think probably not the biggest priorities because, as you mentioned, the prices are high. I don't think I've seen Whiteside at 9,500 ever, basically.
Yeah,
so,
I think he was 7,500 like 2 games ago or something.
that's crazy. So DraftKings and FanDuel definitely preemptively adjusted for these prices. Let me see if I can find some values on Yahoo, though. For the other guys, we got FanDuel. Carmelo's really standing out at 6K. Is that a pretty good price for him, you think?
Sorry, I was reading something in chat.
Oh, yeah. Carmelo is 6,700 on DraftKings. That's not making him stand out, but 6K on FanDuel is a pretty appealing price I'm coming up with. Yeah,
I think 6K on FanDuel is nice, especially because he's a small forward too. He looks pretty comparable to me to guys to like Tobias Harris. I still don't think he'll be a priority because you have a 5K Troy Brown, you have the $6,900 Gordon Hayward, you have LeBron at the top. So I think it's a good option, but again, it's just there's so many underpriced guys on FanDuel.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the Yahoo prices here. Jordan McRae is standing out as probably the top value of the day. He's only $15, so that's definitely someone I'm locking. Portland, we got Carmel at 22. On Yahoo is about 1 point per dollar is the average, so that's some really good value. We had a question about Mahinmi, obviously starting for the Wizards most likely, but I don't really think that Beal being out affects Mahinmi to any significant degree. Is that what you think?
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. Like, if Beal were in, I think I would have gotten more Mahinmi just because value is harder to come by and his price tag is reasonable. But Beal being out doesn't really change much there because you're still getting about 48 minutes from Mahinmi and passing sneaks, and it's not like Mahinmi's getting a bunch of usage or anything with Beal being out. So I think that it's not that he really changes. It's just that there's more value on the slate and more guys around him that I like more in salaries. So I expect to have less of him now than I would have before.
Okay, good to know. So I think he's playable, especially on Yahoo at 10, but not really that interesting. We had a question about Frank Kaminsky being ruled out. He was already doubtful, so that doesn't change, but we'll get to that game in a little bit. I think it is pretty significant. The game, Philadelphia at Houston. Houston's favored by 5. 227 over under, second highest on the slate, so maybe we got some interesting plays here. All right. One thing from Portland I forgot to mention is that Scalabrine is out. So that's making the backup center Anthony Tolliver, I guess. That probably doesn't affect anything, right?
No, and Hazonia is probable. So like last game, you saw Tolliver playing backup 5 and 4. I expect Hazonia to take some of those minutes. So it's nothing that matters to me.
Okay.
The biggest difference is I think it just helps to solidify the Melo and Whiteside minutes.
All right, sweet. Philly. So the big news that everyone was talking about today, James Ennis is out. I mean, that's gotta make everyone a lock button play on the Sixers, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a game changer.
So Embiid, he looks like the most appealing guy to me. Obviously the best player on the team, but prices aren't too ridiculous. And I think with Embiid missing all these games, that the Sixers might be a little bit overpriced when he's in. Are you looking at any of these Sixers players?
I think that Embiid's pretty interesting. He's basically the same price point as Hassan Whiteside, and I expect a couple less minutes for Embiid than Whiteside, but he's the more productive per minute player. So I think that he looks like a pretty good option, especially now that we've gotten more value. It's going to be really easy to pay up to guys like that. Beyond that, Harris on FanDuel looks okay. He looks okay on DraftKings too, but probably more valuable on FanDuel since you have to roster 2 small forwards. Overall, though, it's just not a team that, with the starting 5 healthy, it's not a team that gives you a lot in the way of value. Like I think that Ennis being out mostly just affects like Furkan Korkmaz, Trey Burke, guys like that, and that's not really very useful.
Yeah, for sure. I think that anyone not in the starting lineup in the Sixers is probably a fade. For Houston, I've been seeing some interesting stuff here. So Harden's minutes in the last game were a little bit lower. Westbrook seems to have kind of the same rotation, but Eric Gordon coming back in the mix, do you think that affects Westbrook or Harden?
I think it makes it a little bit easier for D'Antoni to, maybe sub them out of the game a minute or two earlier, but I don't think it has too big of an effect. Like if this game's competitive down to the wire, I would still expect 36 to 38 minutes at least from these guys. And Gordon doesn't really take usage from them. When he's on the floor with both of them, he doesn't really do much of anything. And when he's on the floor with one of them, he only does slightly more. So I don't think it's a huge difference compared to when, Austin Rivers or Macklemore were getting more minutes.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be really easy to get to some of these value guys tonight with the Wizards. So Harden and Westbrook stand out to me as pretty good ways to suck up some salary. I'm a little bit surprised, honestly, that the Houston players are grading out as pretty good values today versus Philly, who's a little bit of a tough matchup. But projected for 116 points. Is there something about this Philadelphia team that I'm missing, that they're just a little bit weaker on defense?
They haven't been great lately. Like over the last month, they're 13th in defensive rating, but I think it's more just that, Houston's still a really good offense, and, Harden and Westbrook, of course, are just really good players. They're also priced down. It's not like you're talking about like a 12K Harden facing Philly. He's down to 10-9 on DraftKings, 11-1 on FanDuel. Westbrook's in the low $9,000 range. So I think they're priced down for the matchup. So like compared to, in terms of raw points, compared to where I get Harden and Westbrook projected, they're pretty low, but the salary accounts for that.
Yeah, so I guess the site's kind of preemptively adjusted for the matchup here. So Westbrook and Harden a little bit cheaper than normal. Capella also really, really cheap. 6,900 on DraftKings, a very nice price. 7,600 at FanDuel, probably tougher to get to a center with some other better options. But how are you feeling about Capella?
I think it's a pretty good value. It's not a priority. Like I would rather get to Whiteside or Embiid if I can, but Capella's kind of in a price range by himself where I think it'll be pretty useful in some lineup constructions. He certainly has upside at that price. So it's not like you're landing there and just saying, oh man, this guy doesn't have a ceiling or anything. Like he, over the last month since the start of December, he's played 13 games. He's averaged 35.2 minutes per game. It's not an appealing matchup for him against Embiid and the Sixers, but the minutes should be there. The salary is fine. I will get to him just because it's a good price point.
Nice. Yeah, I think they're going to want him out there a lot versus Embiid. So that makes sense. PJ Tucker actually just got a question in the Slack from Morgan Smith. He's wondering, how does PJ Tucker stack up to the Wizards' value? So I think that, man, every day I'm like, is there something wrong with my projections? Because PJ Tucker stands out as a great value. He actually is rebounding pretty well this year. His usage is one of the lowest in the league, on the other hand. But he's cheap and he plays 36 minutes a game. Do you think his minutes will be impacted at all by Gordon coming back?
I don't think so. I still think he plays 36, 37 minutes. The issue with Gordon for me is I think that he's a good point per dollar. Like he projects well in terms of points per dollar because he's so cheap, but the volatility just isn't really there when you're talking about a guy with a sub 10% usage rate this year playing on the same team with Harden and Westbrook and, now Eric Gordon, if that makes a difference. But also when you have, Capella grabbing rebounds, you have Westbrook grabbing rebounds. Basically, when you get the big games from Tucker, it's just because he's on the floor for so long and he gets a couple extra rebounds or defensive stats or whatever. But he just doesn't have the volatility that I really like unless I have to go there for value. And that's certainly not the case on this slate.
Yeah, I'm a little bit happier going to Tucker than you, I think, because with such a low price, you don't need as many points. And if he gets 6 more points in my projection, I think that will be good enough. And even if he's lower volatility, that's not that unlikely. The next game, I think, though, is one of the better values with the Knicks versus Phoenix. Knicks are 7.5 point dogs, 224 over under. And we were talking about the Dennis Smith, Ntilikina, Payton situation with all three in play, or with all three playing, none of them really stand out. But with Alfred Payton likely out, Frank and Dennis stand out as good values. How do you feel about them now that we have this Wizards news?
Much less interested. I still think that they're good values. I have them both projected right around 6x at their, on DraftKings at the minimum salary, and it's a good matchup against Phoenix. The problem is just that Ntilikina probably gets more minutes or probably gets the bulk of the minutes, and he's not a very productive DFS player. Smith's more productive, but I'm expecting him to, play 18 to 20. So I'll still get to some if I project Payton out, but nowhere near as much as I would have gotten to if Beal were in.
Yeah, I think they're not lock button plays like they may have been before the Beal out news, but I think that you can have these guys. I just wouldn't have them in the same lineup. So make sure to not put them together because very anti-correlated here. But so one thing I noticed here is that RJ Barrett and Marcus Morris's minutes have been down. That's kind of taking them a little bit out of play, but is there any reason why they might come back up, or are we kind of going back to the 30 compared to their averages of 31.5 for the year?
I think Morris and Randall their minutes should still be there. They lost a little bit of playing time against Portland because the Knicks somehow blew out the Blazers. Randall was on pace for 32 minutes. Morris played 33, would have gotten up to 35. I have Randall in at 33 today. I have Morris in at 32. It makes them both look like, pretty solid options. I do think that there's a chance Randall could be hurt a little bit if Payton's out. His recent production has been really, really good. It coincides with the coaching change, but it also coincides with Elfrid Payton being in the lineup, and Payton's a better facilitator than Ntilikina is. So I think there's some chance that, maybe Randall's hurt, but or not, or hurt by Payton, not playing. But I still think that in this matchup and at his price point, it's a pretty good option.
Yeah, I think these prices are a little bit depressed. So I think going into some Knicks players makes sense. One thing I noticed is Taj Gibson's starting, but barely playing at all anymore. Would you take any shots on Mitchell Robinson in that case, or Bobby Portis?
I have Robinson in for 27 minutes, which makes him kind of mediocre at his price point. Bobby Portis is, I think, a little bit more interesting just because he's so cheap and shouldn't really have ownership. One thing that did scare me last game with the rotation, though, was that Portis, he ended up playing 20 minutes, but a lot of that was because he stayed on the floor the entire fourth quarter. He was playing really well, but also the game got out of hand. I wouldn't expect him to close normally, so I'm a little concerned because Reggie Bullock came back, and that coincided with Portis seemingly getting fewer minutes. So I still have Portis at his average of 20 minutes, but it's a little bit concerning.
Yeah, I think he might be an option on the late slate or something, but pretty tough to get there with all the value. So Portis is one of those guys. I wish he got more minutes, but never seems to get on the court. On Phoenix, Dario Saric has been kind of a nominal starter recently. He's averaged 27 minutes on the year, but he's only averaged 18 over his past 5. So what's been going on? I mean, I know that DeAndre Ayton's back, but I thought that would take away from Aron Baynes. Yeah,
it's weird. It's basically been since Saric missed like a game or two with injury, and then he came back and he's just barely been playing. I don't know what to make of it, but I obviously can't be projecting him for a bunch of minutes since, we're at 6 or 7 straight games of him playing 22 minutes or less.
So someone's saying in chat that Dennis Smith is not expected to play anymore. Do you see any news like that? I
hadn't. All I saw was he went through shoot around and he was questionable.
Yeah, so maybe people are. It does say that someone reported that Steve Popper, he's a Knicks writer, even though he worked out, Smith sounded like he will not be ready to play today, still working his way back from injury.
Yeah, I just saw that. So
that might elevate Frank to a higher status, you think?
Yeah, and also that beat writer was asked about Payton's status. He said he wasn't here for shoot around. They haven't ruled him out yet. Hard to imagine he flies across the country, steps off the plane, and into the lineup.
So does this make Alonzo Trier the backup to Frank?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, so he wasn't even in the rotation at all.
Right.
So does that mean, Frank, we should expect for more minutes than if Dennis Smith was in?
I think you probably can get more minutes from Frank. I think you also could potentially get Barrett playing some point.
Yeah.
So I had Barrett at 30 minutes. I think I'm going to give a couple extra minutes to Barrett. And then I'll give minutes to Trier. I'll keep Ntilikina at 30, I guess.
Yeah, so this does make Frank a little bit more appealing because I feel like Trier is not as good as Dennis Smith, but maybe I'm still dreaming of the days where Dennis Smith was on the Mavs.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that makes me feel a little bit better is Fizdale had some kind of weird obsession with Trier where he would just give him a bunch of minutes whenever he could, and now it's not Fizdale at least.
Yeah. So thanks to the guys in the chat who pointed that out. That's very helpful. So Aron Baynes, he's been seeing his minutes. It's hard to say because DeAndre Ayton didn't play every game. So Baynes' minutes are looking pretty good. But I really don't know what to expect because the Knicks play pretty big. So maybe they would play Ayton and Baynes together. But do you think that's going to happen very often?
I mean, they did it against the Lakers, but that was against McGee and Davis front courts. They could do it for a couple minutes here against the Knicks. I think that, so the way I projected it, I gave 30 minutes to Ayton, I gave 20 to Baynes. It makes Ayton a decent option at his price point. It makes Baynes less appealing now. I think I would have gotten to some of him at 4,200 prior to all the Wizards value opening up. But I think that it's still up in the air kind of how this rotation goes, especially because like Baynes makes the Suns more likely to win, but Ayton obviously they would like to develop. So I'm not real sure yet how it plays out. But last game, against the Lakers, we got like 32 minutes from Ayton. We got about 20 from Baynes. So I think you could see a couple minutes alongside each other.
That would be pretty nice for Baynes, especially if it's significant, because he's really priced to play 20 minutes. If you played more, pretty good value there. The rest of the team, Kelly Oubre has been playing big minutes. Devin Booker and Rubio, we know pretty much what to expect there. But it doesn't look like the Suns are projected to do that much better than average, even though it's the Knicks. Do you see these guys as core plays?
No, the only guy that looks like, I think Rubio and Oubre look fine, as does Ayton. The only guy that I think Booker looks the best, only 7,900 on DraftKings, 8K on FanDuel. But when you compare him to some of the other guards like Westbrook or Dame Lillard, kind of across positions, I think that it'll still be hard to prioritize him. But I do think that he's a little bit underpriced.
All right, guys. I got a little peek behind the paywall here. So one of the tools I have is a boom bust tool. And I just loaded it up. And Frank Ntilikina has the highest chance of getting more than 10 points above value. So that would suggest that maybe he is one of the top value plays of the day at 3,200 on DraftKings. So are we back on Frank?
Yeah, I mean, I have him at he's fine. Like he sucks, but he's a minimum price guy in a good matchup that should get minutes. And he's another guy too that we kind of like we had talked about with Miami, where if he doesn't get the minutes that we're projecting him for, it's because he was playing terribly, and those teams, are going to suck anyway. If he's playing well, he's got the opportunity for all the minutes in the world.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we could see like 36 minutes from Frank. That would be crazy, but well within the realm of possibilities. So his ownership tonight, I'll check that as well. Our ownership, I believe, is free today. So if you're not a member, you can follow along with us. But Frank is only projected for about 6% ownership in our most recent update. It is possible that will go up, but at that, I mean, you got to think that, man, you got to lock him in. It is a little bit tougher to project ownership because of all the questionable players in that game. So I'm not taking that as gospel, but if he's that low owned, he would definitely be a lock. So if you don't have a membership, make sure to use that promo code 2020 that we got going on. $20 for all access for 20 days. And then you can get access to all these tools every day. That'll help you up your game. Last game of the night, your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans versus the Lakers. New Orleans is a 10-point dog. We've been seeing JJ Redick kind of get way fewer minutes, but he's extremely cheap on DraftKings, 3,400. Never thought I'd see that day either. Lonzo Ball, Favors, they're really cheap on FanDuel. Is there any one player on the Pelicans that's jumping out at you?
The matchup terrifies me because the Lakers are just a really good defensive team. But I do think Derek Favors is really interesting. We'd seen his minutes come up to where he was playing around 30 most nights. In his last game, he played 35 minutes. And then now you get this big Lakers front court where they need Favors out there. So I think that if this game's competitive and he's not in foul trouble or stuff, you could see him get over 30 minutes again. He's greater than a fantasy point per minute player. He's reasonably priced at 6,200 on DraftKings and on FanDuel. Power forward eligibility on both of those sites. So it scares me, but I think that he's a good option. I think that on DraftKings, Ingram and Drew are a bit underpriced as well, despite the tough matchup. One thing that's good is that the Lakers have been playing faster lately. So they've gone from being like one of the slowest teams in the league and one of the best defenses to not the slowest team in the league and one of the best defenses.
That doesn't sound very reassuring, but I guess maybe if you're dying for a reason to play some guys, that would be it. Favors is really cheap on Yahoo at 21, so he'd be a core play on Yahoo. But I think, man, he's really taken a step forward this year, averaging more than a fantasy point a minute, and the price of 6,200 is pretty good. 30 minutes a game over the last 5, so he's standing out to me. What's the deal with Redick? Why has he been getting phased out here?
I have absolutely no idea. It's what I hate about the Pels. Like, they have so many guys that can rotate through. They can run so many different lineups consisting of whoever, whether it's Lonzo, Drew, Redick, Etwan Moore. They can play Ingram at the 3 and go bigger, which is something that is certainly a risk in this game against that Lakers front court. So there's just a lot of interchangeable pieces. The one nice thing about Redick is that, assuming he starts, if he goes out there and just, starts knocking down threes, he's going to play more minutes, and he's 3,400 and he probably won't be that popular. So that makes him pretty appealing. But in terms of like a median projection or someone that you would trust with any kind of floor, that's not really the guy.
Yeah. So I think a pretty good value play. Certainly, if he averages 25 as opposed to his average of 28.5 for the year, that would probably be a bad sign. But you're right that starting really gives him that extra opportunity that if he is hitting shots, he'll be out there. Ingram, Drew Holiday, the matchup's pretty tough, and I'm not really seeing any advantage in taking them. Do you see any reason maybe why you would?
I think the DraftKings prices are pretty nice. Like 7,400 for probably 36 minutes from Holiday is appealing. He's, he should be a little bit over a fantasy point per minute. Same goes for Ingram there. On FanDuel, I think the pricing is much less appealing.
Yeah, I think you're right. On most players, it seems like FanDuel's cheaper, but these guys not as much. Lonzo on FanDuel is 5,300. He's been averaging 29 minutes over the last 5, and that's making him stand out as maybe a value. But the point guard position is pretty loaded. Do you see yourself landing on Lonzo?
Yeah, I think the opportunity cost is the tough part. The minutes are there if he's playing well. He's another one. Pretty much everyone on the Pels outside of like Ingram, Drew, and Favors are just at the whim of Alvin Gentry and how they're playing, which is nice in terms of their upside in situations where the sites have their salaries pretty low. But it also just, gives them a lot of risk because it's not really difficult to see how Lonzo struggles against a really good defensive team and then loses minutes.
Yeah, but I didn't hear anything about revenge in that narrative there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Lonzo and Ingram and Hart are going to have to fight it out.
That's a good point. Yeah. I guess Vegas itself isn't buying into this revenge narrative, but it could be a good TV one to watch. So maybe on the late slate, I'll have some of these guys. On the other side, if you're looking for some guys to soak up some salary, I mean, LeBron James and Anthony Davis certainly fit that bill. Do you think you're going to wind up on them because of all the value on the slate today?
Yeah, I think so. It's a really good spot for both of them. The Pels, not a good defensive team. They play reasonably fast. And one thing that I normally look at when I'm trying to make my best guess at who matches up a little bit better between James and Davis is whether the opposing team struggles in transition or against post-up players. And the Pels have been pretty bad against both. So I think that it sets up nicely for them. Davis is a bit cheaper, which is nice on DraftKings. He's a little bit more appealing on FanDuel too because you get the added points for blocks. But I think both guys are really good plays.
So you're not going to like this question from Morgan in our premium Slack then. Which one do you like more?
Yeah, I like them both. I mean, I think James projects a little bit higher. Like he's the better per minute player. They play similar minutes. It really is just what you need in your lineup. Like on FanDuel, obviously they play different positions. On DraftKings, you're talking about a $900 price difference. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with either one. If I had all the money and it didn't matter, I would take LeBron just because I haven't projected a little higher.
I got a cop out answer here because on FanDuel, Anthony Davis is 1K cheaper. So if you really want to make a decision, you could play on that side, I guess. As far as other guys, we got Caruso out. That probably means Troy Daniels steps in for that many minutes, but is pointing that my guy's out. Kuzma, not really a good price. KCP has been averaging a lot of minutes, but Avery Bradley had a big game the other day, but none of these guys are really in the mix for me.
No, me neither. Rondo's minutes have been down. Like he's the guy off their bench that I always want because he's actually a good per minute player when he plays. Everyone else is kind of just running around shooting threes from the corner and hoping they go in. But Rondo's minutes have been down. Bradley, we saw the minutes go up, but what happens if he's not making all of his shots? But more importantly, his salary went from $3,100 on DraftKings to $4,500. So that takes pretty much all of the appeal away from him. Danny Green, I think, is kind of interesting at $3,700 on DraftKings. He's similar to Bradley in that he can play anywhere from like 22 to 30 minutes, kind of depending on how he's playing. So now that he's cheaper than Bradley, if I were going to one of these wings, it would be Green.
All right. Well, these guys fall under the late slate only for me, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty tough to love them. It seems like all the action's in some of these earlier games. So just to recap here, we got Chris and Josh following us on Live Before Lock. But first of all, are there any injury situations that you're expecting might change your lineups after lock?
Only the Payton one, if we got that Payton or Smith are actually in.
Yeah, so I don't even know if Smith being in is that big a factor unless you want to play Smith himself.
Right, yeah, like I would just want some Smith potentially.
Yeah, so that'd be kind of interesting. Maybe if you're in a head-to-head or something, and your opponent's got Frank, maybe you go with Smith or something if you're trying to catch up.
Yep.
And then as far as top players, who is the player you think is like the top player of the night?
For me, it's between Harden and LeBron. I think I'd give the edge to LeBron just because I like the matchup a little bit better.
Man, so you're going for a top projection. I'm gonna go with let's see, top value. I feel like Marcus Smart is probably a pretty easy lock, but we got Troy Brown and Jordan McRae. Those really stand out to me as guys that you can just plug and play in any lineup here. So make sure to hit the like button, and we got Chris and Josh following us up here, taking you all the way up to the lock to cover any breaking news. Thanks for watching the deeper dive here.
All right, what's up, guys? What's going on? It's the Awesemo.com live before lock show where things change by the minute here, the joys of NBA DFS, but we're going to walk you through it as best we can. As always, I'm Chris Spags, joined once again by my Friday buddy with a fancy new on-brand background, the Chubster Josh Engelman. How you doing, Josh?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, I tagged in graphics Jake and was like, yo, I need an Awesemo background instead of just random shit that I find on the internet to post. And he came up with it immediately. Gave it to me in the middle of the strategy show, oddly enough.
Jake works hard. Jake works fast. He also, if you've been following the Four Corners, my short form video on the channel, we also had a little graphic overhaul on there. So bit by bit, our boy Jake, not Jake Hari, who's handsome in his own way, but he's creating beauty in a different form. Than
we exiled Jake Hari off to hockey for like 6 months.
Yeah, he basically goes like Superman to, to some sort of isolation chamber, and he has to recalibrate for baseball season. But watch those guys, though, because they're doing a good job for all the hockey fans out there, all the hockey aficionados. But, of course, we are right now presented by Fantasy Draft, the official home of rake-free DFS. Go check them out right now at fantasydraft.com. Or if you go and download them on the App Store, too, same thing. You can use the promo code Awesemo to get 7 days free right there. You're entering into the world of rake-free DFS, and Fantasy Draft is a great site because it helps you build your bankroll more and more every day by not charging you rake. All the other sites which we play on and do love, they are charging you rake 10 to 15% of each tournament they're taking for themselves. Fantasy Draft, that is not the case. So go over there right now to fantasydraft.com. We do have a deal going right now. Awesemo.com/join. If you use the promo code 2020, you get yourself 20 days for just $20 of our all-access premium pass. That is every bit of content we have on the site, all the articles, all the data, the boom bust tool, the top stacks, everything across every site that you could possibly want. It's at your fingertips right now if you use the promo code 2020 at awesemo.com/join. All right, Josh, so let's talk about this slate. The chalk has kind of flipped around a little bit and actually may flip around a little bit more in this last hour. So I'll just ask you, who is your top owned player across the sites today? Or if you want to go site specific too, that also works.
Somebody from the Wizards for sure. If I had to guess, it's going to be Gary Payton on FanDuel and Jordan McRae on DraftKings, but it could easily be Ish or Gary Payton. It's somebody from the Wizards for sure.
So, so I guess, do you have a lean at all? Which with Wizard do you want, or are you just letting the numbers kind of do the work?
I'm getting all of these assholes. I had, let's be real specific. So I ran a crunch before this. Things are about to change, I'm sure. Gary Payton close to 80%. Ish and Isaiah both around 40 on FanDuel. Troy Brown at like 65. Going to be getting a lot of those four guys on both sites for sure. I didn't even mention Jordan McRae there, did I? Jordan McRae, 47% on FanDuel. I'm just getting all of these guys, the whole damn team.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Do you have an idea in mind for how many Wizards you consider to be too many? Because for me, I've had three, I think, as an amount that I feel comfortable with. You have a couple lineups with four because of Poshniks, but he's just so cheap on DraftKings where that's one play I don't mind making with the size that they're going to need against Whiteside. But how many Wizards would you say is too many today?
4 is probably the cap for me. I also want to point out that D Baker in chat, which Baker as the last name makes it mildly plausible. Josh's background looks like my grandmother's wallpaper in the late 70s. Not entirely sure how your grandmother got the Awesemo logo 45 years ago or whatever, but I guess if your last name is Baker, if anybody had it, it could have been you.
Yeah, she's been time machining there, I'm sure. That's what the case was, and that maybe she's one of our hosts from the future. That would be pretty fun.
I was just gonna make a grandmother joke there, so I'm just gonna shut my mouth.
We are not our own grandparents here on the Awesemo YouTube channel. Unfortunately, no matter how sultry the grandmother may look when you're going back through time. So we're mixing up metaphors, and people are very confused if they turn on the show right now. But Absolutely. That's life. I guess outside of the Wizards, then, where are you finding to be the most owned plays? Because it looks like right now on DraftKings and close on FanDuel, it looks like the chalk play of the day is Marcus Smart. It's hard to argue that that the situation with him rather just being highly owned everywhere. He is value. We have no Kemba Walker in the mix, but there are some games where Marcus Smart just does nothing. And even games where you think he's going to do well, he just kind of sits back and ends up kind of cruising, low usage rate guy. Where are you with the field with Smart? Because the value's there, but also he is very, very chalky.
Pretty much neutral to the field on Smart now, a little bit under on FanDuel, right with it on DK. I now have infinite money, so I have like 2x the field of James Harden. I have like 60% Anthony Davis. I can pretty much get whoever I want. It's fun.
Okay. Let's see. Got some questions here from Brian Peel in the chat right now. On the premium Slack, of course, you get with that Awesome Plus membership. He's asking, can we play McRae and Payton together? I see no reason why not at all. In fact, Payton, I feel like if anything, is going to take the least off the table for McRae. But do you have any objections to that?
No, I don't really have any problem with any two individual players. You start to get into more problems if as you start to add more people. Adam kind of talked about it a little bit on the deeper dive. You just kind of want to think about who is going to close the game for the Wizards and try not to have too many people in both sides of that. If you're getting a bunch of Wizards, you want to get them if you think that they will all close together. Nice. Aaron Gordon is in. I didn't want to fix that shit.
Yeah, he is in after going through shoot around. So there we go. That's one piece of news. What are we have any other news that we're waiting for? I guess the Frank Ntilikina.
I mean,
news
technically speaking, Elfrid Payton, but
yeah. So
I'm assuming he already is not playing.
Yeah, the assumption based on reporters is that Elf is taking a personal day because I guess he was like available to play health wise, but he's hadn't flown into town yet and hadn't flown in as of shoot around. So it looks like Frankie Smokes will be another play that's going to pop up for a lot of people throughout the day, though.
Yeah.
In our last round of ownership, he hadn't surged up yet. What are you feeling with Frank? Because we talked about this a little bit before we came on the air, but I'm very bullish on Frank just because I think the matchup fits. And I think there's also an obvious pivot at the same price point with Trier, where if I want to half my Frank exposure, I can do that because if he does get chalky, I think that's one obvious way to split it up. What are you doing with Frank? And is he somebody that you would actually want given the other value we have now?
Yeah, I had 30% on my last DraftKings crunch. On FanDuel, not somebody that I'm getting to as of yet, but we'll see if that changes. He's 3,900 on FanDuel, so it's a little bit less appealing. Given Isaiah Thomas, Ish Smith, Kendrick Nunn, there's enough out there at point guard on FanDuel where it's not as appealing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And on DK, that's why I'm willing to take that stab. Again, he and Pochnik's just pretty much the minimum price. And, I think that's on this slate in particular, there is value, like guys who are underpriced a little bit compared to what they can do. But I think there isn't anybody particularly cheap who you feel in love with who's going to get a really great role today. I think Frank is a guy in a spot against Phoenix team that does play with some pace and does generally employ a traditional point guard. They haven't done as much of RJ Barrett at the point since making the switch over to Mike Miller as the head coach. I do think Frank's going to get some run, and I'm willing to take that stab at 3,200. People in the chat right now on YouTube really fixated on Aaron Gordon. His price is cheaper on DraftKings, so maybe that gets him there. But an Achilles injury, playing Miami, maybe not the ideal spot for Gordon. Do you have any feel for him? Because the ownership on him, we're at 10%. I could see how people want to get there as value, but I certainly wouldn't trust him in this situation.
I basically have no interest in him whatsoever. I'll probably have him in like 5% of lineups. He's a complete afterthought. This is a terrible game for DFS.
Yeah, and it's possible, sometimes those terrible games can break a little bit differently, like that Denver game yesterday with Indiana. But that's a case where you had two defenses who kind of went the one way just to try to break up the fact that they both were good defenses. And you saw kind of the opposite of the situation with Toronto and Miami, where those teams both slogged it out, even though they are capable of better offenses. So I think people may see that game yesterday and think, oh, wow, I can load up here. But this game too, Miami is going to be fairly chalky, or at least have some decent ownership on them. So it's not an analogous situation, even though I think people may pair those two together because that did just happen yesterday. Let's see here. Brian Peel asking a lot of questions in the premium Slack. Brian asking, is Tice okay for you on FanDuel for a GPP? Do you have any interest for Daniel Tice?
I don't think so. Yeah, no. On FanDuel, no interest.
Yeah, his price on DK, it did jump out to me a little bit, but the minutes that can go to Enes Kanter, who's higher priced enough where he's also not a value. I think is really, I don't mind Tice, but I don't see why you would do that on FanDuel today in particular.
I figure I get I don't know, how much should I get? 5% is my guess. I got 16% Daniel Tice. I don't expect that to hold on my next crunch though. So I mean, he's like a less than 10% guy. I can't just it's not going to do anybody any good if I just recommend 55 guys that I have at 10% or less.
XXX Achilles XXX asking, who do you like at center on FanDuel? Which is obviously a more binary equation there. Who would you feel like is your center of choice?
Oh, that's easy. The center, the best offensive center in basketball, the center of my Philadelphia 76ers, as they will lead the city of Philadelphia to the promised land by winning all of their games in other cities.
You are a known Joel Embiid lover, of course.
Absolutely. All he does is dominate road games, and I expect him to do nothing different today.
Yeah, I like Embiid on DraftKings too. Embiid and John Collins are two guys that I would say are my pay up center options, even though Collins is obviously a little bit cheaper than Embiid. But I think the spot for Embiid's pretty good. You know, it's a higher pace situation. I'm not terribly worried about the Capella defense on the other side for him in particular. I think if anything, I have Capella on DraftKings as his price does jump out, but Capella, I think, is going to have more of a problem with Embiid just because he could pick up fouls very easily against Embiid and how he does that. Embiid to me is a very strong play. He's under 10% on DraftKings too.
Give me a second. I got to put some gear on. It's not Sixers gear, but I'm representing this.
Are you representing Cambodia or Cameroon? I forget where he's from. Cameroon, not Cambodia. Not Cambodia too. Represent Cambodia. I can't even see what you're doing. So this is really
represent the city of Philadelphia, baby. It's baseball time. Woo. Okay, there we go. Let's go, Philly.
I actually went over to Zoom to see your outfit. That's a cute little outfit.
Yeah, I got to represent, man. I got to represent the city.
Did that 1970s grandma go back and get that for you too?
She did indeed. Indeed. Harry Callis got it for her.
Whose jersey is that? Or is that
nothing? It's just like a zip up sweater.
Oh, okay. Good looking zip up sweater though, I will say. I don't mind it.
Shouts to Mitchell and Ness.
Yeah, shouts to Mitchell and Ness. Give us the hookup, Mitchell and Ness.
I have that hookup already.
Do you really? You already? You're not big enough to have that hookup. Oh, you have a friend though that works there, don't you?
He used to work there. He was one of the designers there. He's at Reebok now.
I was like, are you getting influencer status? And I'm not getting. Are you getting clout? I'll chase some clout for freebies right now.
I just have connections to people that work there.
All right, that's fair. Already getting the either ors in the Slack. We're not doing either ors right now. I simply refuse to do that with 45 minutes left to go. Other Celtics though, because we talked about Marcus Smart. Which Celtic do you have the most of, I guess, besides Smart or including Smart?
That's a good question. Smart at 20%. Actually, it'll be easier to look at it a different way. Celtics I have the most of. Smart, I have a lot of Jason Tatum on FanDuel, not so much on DraftKings. I don't really have much Boston at all on DK. It's more of a FanDuel play. Wanamaker, Brown, Hayward, Tice, Tatum, and Smart. But Tatum and Smart seem to be the guys that are leading the charge.
Do you have any Wanamaker thoughts today? Because it does kind of seem like, and to be clear, this is not a play that I'm making much of. I actually might not have any of them, which feels a little short-sighted, but kind of feels like today would be the day to go to Brad Wanamaker after all these days where he's disappointed as chalk with Kemba either out or some reason why Wanamaker's going to get more minutes. And if Marcus Smart is this chalky, I think there is actually some appeal in going to Wanamaker at a much cheaper price, especially against Atlanta. But how are you feeling about Wanamaker? And I guess, do you want to talk about the overall, I would say, the haranguing people have done over the concept of Brad Wanamaker, both in our Slack and industry-wide today?
I just have a little bit. It's nothing crazy, like 10%. We just got word. Aaron Gordon's starting at the 3. Kem Birch is starting at the 4, which I did not expect.
So, wait, so Isaac is out?
John Isaac is out for 2 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
John Isaac hyperextended his knee 2 nights ago and played 2 minutes while I had him owned 75%.
Oh. Between that and your Jalen Brunson day, you've been killing it.
Yeah, it's been great, man. It's been great.
Yeah, so
I got to give Kem Birch a couple extra minutes here. I guess.
Yeah, what is that?
Probably telling Emile Jefferson to fuck right off.
I mean, it is a matchup, I guess, where Birch could be helpful inside, trying to keep Bam off the boards. But I don't see like how he lasts more than one rotation unless like Miami kept Myers Leonard out. Like you don't need Birch in there at the 4 with a bunch of wings.
I mean, look, I get it. Miami kind of runs 2 bigs. I'm only giving Kem Birch 18 minutes. He's not someone that I'm going to be getting to on this slate, but I just wanted to see Aaron Gordon play more at the 4 because he's a 4. But
people in the YouTube chat, being a delight as always. Jonathan Isaac, it was not on my radar, but actually I do have him at 0 minutes. I just didn't look at this game today because it's not the most appealing for me. So sorry, guys. But unfortunately, when you're doing multiple slates and multiple sports, that does happen. But Jesus Christ, guys, be less toxic sometimes.
It makes no difference. Like it makes no difference in relationship to this game. Kem Birch is not really playable at that salary.
No. And then, yeah. And I just, that side to me, like I got a lot of Evan Fournier today, which I guess does make more sense because there's more minutes to go around on the wing. And I was like, I wonder why that's happening. Interesting. But no, I just didn't think about it because it's really that's not how I process slates. So sorry guys, but relax with the fucking toxicity. Anthony Ruiz, shout out to you for the super chat. Best bet in DFS, Josh, Randle and Embiid or Bam and Whiteside? Great content every day. Thank you. Who do you pick between Randle and Embiid or Bam and Whiteside? I would go Randle and Embiid.
Ooh. Let me look at it. So I assume that's a DraftKings question.
Yeah, I would guess so.
Randle. Well, actually, is it? Actually, no. It could be a FanDuel question. Let's look at it in terms of FanDuel. Randle, Embiid, Bam Adebayo, Hassan Whiteside. Randle and Embiid.
Okay, yeah. So we are on the same page with that one. Yeah. This is good. This is really helpful, chat. Keep talking shit so I know how to hide forever. So please keep going. But yeah, I think the Magic overall, I guess to close the loop on that then. So you're not interested in Gordon. You might have some interest in Birch, Fournier, Vucevic, any of these other guys jumping out in a game that, again, much like me, a lot of people overlook.
No, other than Vooch around 10%, I don't have anything more than that. Terrence Ross looks okay as a value play on DK.
All right. Let's keep going through these games here. And I guess the Miami side seems like the most relevant one to jump to. We do have some ownership going for Kendrick Nunn. Kendrick Nunn, one of the chalkiest plays on the slate, going to be very, very highly owned, it looks like, because of that low price. But it does seem like a spot where I don't really anticipate him getting bankable usage here. What are you doing with Kendrick Nunn? I assume with all the other value around on the slate, you're probably not getting there as much.
I have him around 30% across both sites. He's my most owned guy from the Heat, most owned guy from that game. I just froze us on the screen. Not permanently, just accidentally. He circled back to that. I accidentally minimized every single window. I've got a lot of Jimmy Butler on DraftKings. I essentially don't have him on FanDuel, and I have a marginal amount of Bam Adebayo.
All right. Yeah, I think that seems fair. I would definitely favor Butler and Adebayo, especially on their DraftKings prices. Butler in particular, it does seem like he comes up a lot with Osmo's projections, and I really do. I don't mind going to a guy like Butler in this kind of game where it's ugly. It's going to be a half-court game. That's where Butler exceeds. That's where you're relying on him the most.
Just need that dude to shoot. He's been had an aversion to shooting lately. Kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And that's, but these are the games where he does have to shoot a bit more. Like that Washington game, I think we talked about that. I forget, that might have been with EMAC. And honestly, everything's blurring together. But there are some games where I just feel like he will let up entirely where Butler does. And in this kind of game against Orlando, where it is down pace, defense going to be a little bit looser without Isaac out there. But still a spot where I think, you rely on him a little bit more in that half court offense. And I think that those are the kind of games where I'm willing to go Jimmy Butler a bit more. This has been really cathartic to mute people who just feel the need to be negative. I might just need to do this more often. This might be my meditation.
There you go.
Let's talk about the Portland at Washington game. We talked about the Washington side, but Portland does have the highest implied total on the slate, 120.5 implied points. Combined total here is also the highest. But DraftKings did price these guys up for the matchup. Hassan Whiteside now probably priced where he should be, but still, could theoretically have some potential against one of the best center matchups in the league. Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum also going to be projecting pretty well for most sites out there. I like these guys quite a bit. The prices are tough to get to, but I did force my way there, especially now that we have the Washington side where you can run it back with some decent value. Are you getting any of Portland here? Because they do appear to be a bit underowned to me on DraftKings with Lillard, Carmelo, and Whiteside all under 10%.
I'm going like basically the opposite direction. I've got a bunch of Bazemore and McCollum on DK, and then I've got a bunch of Melo and Whiteside on FanDuel. Minimal amount of Lillard on FanDuel.
Okay. Yeah, I think Lillard to me would be the guy who has pretty big upside here. He's been priced up for this game. McCollum to me is the guy who I think is the most obvious DFS value. But these guys really do have big potential here. If Washington can keep it close, and we have seen them keep it close a lot of times, winning games, we're going to expect them to. It's a spot for Portland where I think this could have some potential for their side without the ownership on it. Here's a game I'm curious your thoughts on. New York. We talked about Frankie Smokes a little bit going into Phoenix here, but really the big thing for New York is the rotations are a lot more easy to predict, easy to figure out, easy to trust. And now they have Mike Miller in tow there. Julius Randle, his ownership's come up a bit. I feel like I've seen more talk today on YouTube about him than I have with our ownership. We have him at 11% projected ownership right now. What nicks are you getting, if any? Because it does seem like a spot against Phoenix getting almost a 5-point boost from Vegas that they should have some potential to score a bit more here.
I have about 20% Randall across both sites, and then just like 30% Ntilikina on DK. I don't have anything else from New York with any sort of volume.
Okay.
So basically just Randall.
No Morris, even though, I mean, he's come down enough in ownership where I think he's popping up for me a bit more because we had him be one of the most popular plays on the day earlier. And he just seems like decent mid-priced value to go to. I don't know if the ceiling's that great, but you're not landing on him at all?
I have him in 1 of 150 on DK.
All right. Then fair enough. Phoenix, any of these guys jumping out to you with, actually the ownership's really come up on them for a lot. Devin Booker now has, I guess, maybe more money to go around. Devin Booker's ownership has come up. Kelly Oubre, one of the better projected values according to Osmo's projections. Rubio's minutes have been down a little bit. Ayton's back in the mix as well and playing alongside Aron Baynes. He was over 30 minutes last game. Any Suns for you in this game? I just think this game is a little bit more appealing than it might be being perceived as.
Just Booker. I've got quite a bit on DK, 15% on FanDuel. I don't have anything else more than 4%. I only have one share of Rubio on DK. I don't have anything else from the Suns. So I don't really have much outside of Booker.
Okay. What about this New Orleans at Lakers game? Because again, with the value going around, I could see people landing a little bit more on LeBron, Anthony Davis, maybe some of the Pelicans guys, though. It does seem like these guys aren't going to be too highly owned. For the most part, that lineup is being capped at about 20% ownership. Though Redick, I guess, has come up a bit. People maybe wanted to go there because his price is down substantially, even though he's just lost his role in the rotation for whatever reason, definitely lost his usage. But are you getting anything from this New Orleans at Lakers game where feels like people were very into targeting New Orleans for a while, and that hasn't been quite as much the case lately?
About 15% Ingram on DK. Don't have him on FanDuel. Around 15% on Favors and Ball on FanDuel. Don't have them on DK. And then a little bit of JJ Redick on DraftKings. But I don't have much from the Pels. On the Lakers, I have like 66% Anthony Davis on FanDuel. Around 30% on
Well, the price is much better there. Yeah.
Very easy to get to now. Surprised I don't have more LeBron, but I'm cool with it as of right now.
Would you find, I guess, if you were playing on FanDuel today and you know that Anthony Davis is going to be one of the most popular plays on the slate, do you find that to be a reason why you would go to LeBron? Or because it does seem like they don't really pull much away from each other, but would that be a thought process for you at all on FanDuel?
No, not really. I'm not a huge fan of LeBron's price tag across either site. It doesn't mean that he can't still go for 60 plus pretty easily. He's LeBron James, but it's just so much easier to get to Anthony Davis $1,000 cheaper. So instead of having a little bit of LeBron, I'm basically just playing all of the Anthony Davis I can find at 10-4. And there's not a lot of price down. Like all of the guard spots are super cheap today on FanDuel. That's where all the value lies. Or Troy Brown at small forward. So for me, it's just really, really easy to go all the way up to Anthony Davis in abundance.
Okay. No, I think that makes sense. The FanDuel price on Anthony Davis, I mean, he is going to be one of the top owned plays there. It does seem like it's a little bit harder to get around on that site. But, I think the opportunity is certainly there for somebody else to do more or that game to get out of hand. But I actually think I'd lean into that game a little bit more. The prices on Brandon Ingram, I think, is a little better on DraftKings. But I think having more Pelicans in your lineup is going to be a positive thing here. The Lakers defense is good, but there are guys like Ingram who are going to get it done. I would not point chase Lonzo. Actually, did you get any Lonzo at all?
I think just on FanDuel.
Okay.
Yes, just on FanDuel.
Yeah, 7 for 12 3-point shooting last game does not seem like the most repeatable thing for him. But it is worth noting, just because people do get annoyed when you don't know these things. This is the first game for the Pelicans. The guys who got traded in Los Angeles, and Brandon Ingram had actually a pretty decent day the last time they played the Lakers. But he had, I think, 43 fantasy points while shooting 4 for 21 from the floor. So certainly came out a little motivated in that last time in New Orleans. Let's see here. Going back to the Slack. People, E-Ball asking thoughts on Frankie Smokes. I think we touched on it again, but people do come into the show at various points. Frank, if he's getting the run here without Payton, is that appealing to you? Because to me, I do think he's one of my more preferred plays. That's because he's so cheap on DraftKings, and I still like a guy who's just going to get a role against the Phoenix team who plays with pace and bad defense.
I like him on DraftKings quite a bit. I have very little interest in him on FanDuel.
All right, so that sums up Frankie Smokes. Certainly that he's going to get more opportunity if we're assuming that Payton's out. It looks like that still hasn't been officially confirmed yet, but looks like it's the tea leaves are going that way for sure. All right, Eric Gordon limited to 30 minutes today. Okay, why not? How are you feeling about the Harden situation with him losing a little bit of minutes, I guess, last game to Eric Gordon? It's something people I feel like have been worried about. There were also reports with the media about them maybe wanting to cut Harden's minutes. I certainly don't see that being the case every single night, but would that give you any more interest in Gordon or any less interest in Harden?
It changes nothing for me for Eric Gordon. On FanDuel, I was basically neutral to the field on my last crunch. On DraftKings, I had like 45%. I'm going to have a lot of Harden on DK.
Okay.
It's just because there's infinite money going around. I assume that message is incorrect. I'm really excited to ban that guy. Yes. I just hope you don't beat me to it. Goodbye, Skylar. Thanks for being an asshole.
Yeah. The thing that you guys don't get when you watch these streams, we see the chat every day.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes when it's a new year and you're trying to be cool and people get really negative or just make up fake news for no reason, it's just not something we need in our lives. The simpler this process is, the better we all are. Let's see.
Everybody wave goodbye to Skylar.
Yeah, bye, Skylar. But Skylar, my least favorite character on Breaking Bad, so I'm glad to see him or her go.
I hope Skylar is everyone's least favorite character on Breaking Bad.
There are people who think that was like toxic masculinity, that everybody hated Skylar because she was justified in some respects to be mad at Walter White for running a drug cartel underneath her nose.
Very true. Don't need to cheat on him though.
No, that's true.
I mean, you can be a bad guy, but you don't have to. Infidelity doesn't have to be the answer. You could just, leave him.
Ted got what he deserved. Ted got what he deserved.
He did.
Got an ownership update. Yeah. Whoops. That show's been out for like 5 years, or it's been done for 5 years. I feel like at that point, it's all fair game.
Ooh, I do enjoy that everybody's pretty excited to wave goodbye to Skylar.
Call it a hunch. I bet he's going to come back under a different name.
Yeah.
Just call it a hunch. That seems like that happens sometimes. Just pulling. Oh, okay. Does this change your Ish Smith love if he's going to be the number 2 owned play today on DraftKings?
Did we just get an ownership update?
We did. Our boy Makad shouted it out, so we did in fact get one.
I mean, I don't love it, but no.
That, by the way, that's why I do your voice as Ray Romano. That way, you just said that right there.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I don't love it. That was serious. I'm being mean to you. You see the vicious cycle it has in all of our lives.
Ray Romano's worth like $100 million. I will be Ray Romano all day.
So now he's just like a dramatic character actor in Netflix movies.
Hey, that'll work.
He doesn't do comedy anymore.
Well, to be fair, his comedy sucked.
Not to all of America.
Well, yeah, but to all the people that... Never mind. It's not the show for it.
Our boy Vott's asking, do you think Randall has been playing better because of Elf being the facilitator? And are you worried about Frankie taking that role and possibly hurting Randall's production? I would not be. Randall's not a guy who relies on getting the ball in good spots. He's still just a bull in a china shop when he gets the ball at the top of the key or in the elbow. So, no, that wouldn't affect Randall for me. But Josh, do you have any thoughts?
It hadn't crossed my mind at all. But it's not really something that I would look into. I'll be playing Ntilikina and Randall regardless of like my assumptions on that. It's just not something I dig into like that.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I also think just thinking about the style of play, you could see Buddy Hield was a little bit affected by De'Aaron Fox both being out and also just maybe not giving him as many looks. And they have turned that around where it's weird. I was watching that Kings game yesterday and you could see them, because I just had so much money invested in it after touting them all day long. But then they were like just talking a lot more on the court. It's interesting because it does affect some guys, but it's unquantifiable. And with a guy like Randall, he actually does better in isolation kind of situations. Not like he's getting a lot of his points in the post. So I don't think that's something I'd worry much about. Let's see. It's another Knicks question. MC Grazza asking, do we give Barrett a boost if Elf is on the shelf? Also, great reference there, MC Grazza. I don't think we do now. I know, but like Barrett was the point guard earlier in the year. It seems to me like Miller's not playing him that way because there has been mostly Barrett out there with another point guard, at least a nominal point guard. But do you think Barrett gets a boost if there's no Elfrid Payton in?
No, not really. I mean, a slight boost in usage from going from Elfrid Payton to Frank Ntilikina, but like, I don't expect RJ Barrett to suddenly be a point guard. They should be treating him like he's not a point guard, which is exactly what he's not. Just because Fizdale was playing him out of position like an idiot doesn't mean we should expect that to continue.
Okay. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. We just lost one. We just lost one question that was interesting because it was some guy who was really mad that we didn't talk about Garrison Matthews, and
he's not going to be in any of my lineup. So there's your answer for Garrison Matthews guy.
I got him in a couple because his minimum price and Alex has him projected as a 5.6x value, but I really don't expect him to have that day he had against the Heat again. Like, he's not a microwave shooter type guy. If you want to take your stabs at him, that's fine. But if you're playing a lot of him, and the field's going to be playing a lot of him, it looks like he's up to almost 15% projected ownership. That seems like a lot of Garrison Matthews for me.
I don't expect him. I don't expect him to be hot enough to stay on the floor to close today. Could be wrong. Not going to be my guy.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like that one was a bit of a unique situation where that game last time against the Heat where he went off, I think that was one where I really don't know. I don't foresee that happening again. It wouldn't blow my mind if it happened again, but if the field's going to be on for 15% because his minimum price and they expect those results again, that just seems like a not great play.
He's one of my least favorite Wizards. I have like 7 of them ahead of him.
Rosando Armas in the YouTube chat asking, how much favors do you have? How are you feeling about favors? Because I would have thought I would have had more earlier today, and I really just didn't get them. I think his price being up enough just doesn't give me the most confidence, but you would think they need him out there as their only big who can even have a shot to handle Anthony Davis and McGee and Howard at the same time, or, 2 of them at the same time. So how are you feeling about favors here, and are you willing to pay the elevated price for him in a down-paced game against the Lakers?
I had none on DraftKings on my last crunch. I had roughly 15% on FanDuel. He is not someone I'm terribly interested in, although I do think the game flow fits him. He's just not showing up for me. Just not going to be my guy today.
Another question, another person that people are asking about. Apparently, it may shock you to hear, the internet apparently loves white athletes doing things unexpected. Isaiah Hartenstein, people are asking about a lot. Actually, in my Four Corners video today, people were emphasizing. Also, we got a super chat from James Morrison real fast saying, yeah, F Skylar. Thank you, James Morrison. We appreciate that. And I agree. But is Isaiah Hartenstein a guy you would play? Because the minutes have been...
You shouldn't play him at all. At all.
Okay.
0 lineups. He does not play alongside of Clint Capella. So however many minutes you think that Clint Capella is not playing today at center, that's the most that Hartenstein is going to play.
Okay.
They've played 4 possessions alongside each other ever. So if you project Clint Capella for 32 minutes, the most that you can project Hartenstein for is 16. That assumes that PJ Tucker plays 0 minutes at the 5. He should not be in play today.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that checks out. I thought they played a minute or 2 together against Denver, but I guess not. Yeah. No, I agree. Like, I think the price being up too, it seems like a spot where, again, I think Capella can have foul trouble. If you want to play that angle, that's fine, because Capella's going to have some decent ownership on him because he's priced down for the matchup against Philly, and Joel Embiid does draw fouls at a pretty high rate. That, like, I just wouldn't expect him. Like, I wouldn't expect much out of him, and definitely with his price elevated too.
There's so much value out there right now that you need to hope that somehow he still gets those minutes, and scores as much as the value plays for the day. Those are not the types of situations that I try to put myself in.
Yeah, that seems fair. Got a question about Gordon Hayward in the chat as well. I guess we kind of glanced over him in our discussion about Boston, but we can circle back on the Boston guys. Hayward's a guy who, on a per minute basis, I was kind of surprised didn't get a bigger boost from Kemba not being out there. And I guess, having Smart in the mix does change the equation a bit, but I would expect a little more for Hayward in terms of assists and just kind of ball handling time and being able to drive the offense. But the guy I feel the most comfortable getting a boost, or the guys I feel the most comfortable getting a boost, are Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart. But do you think Hayward gets enough of a boost to be in play today against Atlanta? Is he somebody you're interested in?
So obviously the matchup is fantastic. Atlanta's defense is terrible. Trae Young is back, so it'll be even worse. I just see all of these guys pretty comparably. So I think that Hayward and Jaylen Brown are a coin flip. I have a hard time picking between the two. I have Jason Tatum behind both of them from a raw points, not a raw points perspective, points relative to salary perspective. But to me, you just kind of want to rotate through all three of them. I don't see one of them standing out more than the other. Yeah,
I think that's fair. Tatum, the price being up is a little bit tougher, but he is a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy in court time without Kemba Walker overall. That does include some court time with guys like Carson Edwards and the kind of flots him in the second unit. So it could be a bit skewed where I don't know that the price is really worth chasing that spot for any besides Smart. And we talked about the risk with Smart. He's just a 17% usage rate guy on the year. There are some ways where that can go south, even though, Atlanta turns the ball over a little bit. I don't know that I would trust Smart fully, at least in line with where the ownership on the field is going. Let's see. Emac, our old pal Emac, who will be back tomorrow on Live Before Lock doing the show with the returning Fast Eddie Fear from, I think he'll still be in Mexico for those.
No,
how do you feel about... Oh, he'll be back in America? Okay, good. He'll be back stateside with a nice lush tan, what we always wanted for Eddie. How do you feel about Favors going against Howard and JaVale? Does that, I don't...
Not good, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't like his price. If he were 5K flat, sure. If he's 6,100, I just find it a little bit harder to get there. But he's been beating that price for a while.
Adam mentioned it earlier to me in DMs. Just going to put this out there. I am going to steal his thought process. It wouldn't be shocking to see Derek Favors start at the 4 and have Jackson Hayes, or probably, I wouldn't expect it to be Jaleel, but to see a center start at the 5 and Favors at the 4, given the matchup. They've never done it, but this is a little bit of a different spot considering the Lakers play 2 centers. Hell, they kind of play 3, but that's neither here nor there.
Also, we got a super chat from Jeremiah Vincent, which Breaking Bad related 50% of women cheat based on a study done. So Skylar was a coin flip. By the way, send me some luck. I need it. Good luck, Jeremiah, both with your DFS tournaments and with the ladies in your life. I hope that some of them instill confidence in you in the way that
I'm curious what percentage of men cheat.
If it's 50% for women, it's got to be like 75%.
You would think, right?
I would think so. I mean, look, I'm as
Who's
pro
answering
man as
these
possible.
polls?
Yeah, I would say I appreciate men. I think men get a bad rap. The men are trash meme, I think, is just hurtful and unnecessary. But I would say that men probably almost definitely cheat more.
I mean, I would say the type of person that's going to answer a poll is definitely the type of person that would cheat and answer the poll being like, yep, totally did it.
Yeah, or maybe women are more inclined to be honest. That could be the thing too.
Well, no, they're cheating.
They're too busy cheating to take the poll. Well, I guess they're not too busy cheating to take the poll. They're too busy to take the poll with 2 L's. What's your thought on Josh Richardson? We need somebody to shoot threes. I think that's an interesting thought. I never mind taking a guy who can shoot as a pivot off of the other guys who are going to be owned. Tobias Harris's ownership has come down enough, though, where he, to me, seems like the guy I would expect the most to pick up some extra scoring on the wing. But do you have any interest or more interest than you might normally have in Harris or Richardson or even Al Horford, who's complained about his role recently because maybe the fact that Houston clamps down on the other guys and then these guys get open looks?
I have a decent amount of interest in Tobias Harris. I have essentially no interest in Josh Richardson. But Harris is a guy that is showing up quite a bit for me. Simmons to a lesser extent, but it's Embiid and Harris coming out of that one.
John Cotter, Moto Blinders. I am faithful to Osmo, would never cheat. We appreciate that from you. We don't cheat on you by going on other YouTube channels, so you can't cheat on us by going to other chats.
Exactly. All right, I just finished my FanDuel. This should be a fucking disaster.
That's Russell Gray as well. According to my algorithm, that would mean that one of you is being cheated on by your lady. I would say that's almost more likely me.
I hope it's not me, man. That would be a real big bummer.
All those trips that
honestly, she can do what she wants.
She's been getting her groove back down in Jamaica with Tay Diggs.
Yes.
Morgan Smith, thoughts on Trae Young? I'm actually very intrigued by Trae Young today. The defense is going to be tough, but he does keep beating tough defense, or not keep beating, but he does it often enough where at his ownership, with the projection I have on him, I don't mind taking that stab today. John Collins as well.
Who?
Trae Young. I know you bashed him today, and I'm sure Morgan Smith is referencing that, but if you want to regurgitate your Trae Young love that you had earlier, please feel free.
I mean, I have him more than we're projecting on FanDuel. I love him from a fantasy perspective. I just don't think he contributes to winning basketball. That is not a relevant factor for me tonight playing DFS. So for right now, at least on FanDuel, I don't want to say that I'm a fan of Trae Young. He's one of the guys that I have owned, and I am north of the field, but it's not as if I have like 60 or 70%. I have 18.7.
We got a question from two guys in the YouTube chats, or the premium Slack rather. So that's the only reason why I'm going to do this either or right now. But the Mackerel and Elroy Jenkins both asking Hayward versus Oubre. The Mackerel's asking in cash. Elroy Jenkins asking in general. So who would be the person you would want there more? I have more Oubre today.
Either one of those goons give a site?
They are both DK.
Okay.
DK. But one was cash and one was just general.
Gordon, Hayward, Kelly, Oubre. I have Gordon Hayward outscoring Kelly Oubre 52% of the time. So variable coin flip. If either one of them is getting significantly more ownership, go with that guy. Okay.
Yeah, it seems like it'll be Oubre getting more ownership today. And I don't want to misquote Alex's projections, but I believe I definitely got a lot of Oubre with his projections today, more than Hayward. So I think I would probably go Oubre's way for cash in particular. Got an ownership update 1 minute ago, by the way.
We just got a perfect answer. The 50% of women is going to be the wife of the loser of Josh and Laffy's bet. Nailed it.
I don't even know what bet you guys made, actually. I just hear things and I get confused. I have to wake up and go into production mode the second the day starts. So recycle your bet for me.
Yeah, so the bet is I need the Sixers to finish above 500 on the road from this point forward in the season. If they do, then Laffy has to have just a mustache for a week. If they don't, I have to have just a mustache for a week.
It's going to be like that episode of Seinfeld where they all had mustaches, which I know might not be a reference near and dear to your heart.
Big Seinfeld fan, actually.
Oh, I thought that was one of your blind spots. Okay, good.
Ooh, yeah, no, not at all. I cried during the final, and I was in 8th grade at the time
because it just wasn't that good.
Well, no, they played a montage before it to Green Day's "Time of Your Life," and it broke me down pretty bad. I also cry at television a lot.
I actually agree with that. I've talked about this before, but Little Nicky, I said on an Eddie stream once, made me cry. The movie with Adam Sandler as a baby devil.
That is a terrible movie.
Oh, it's not good, but I was going through a breakup in high school, so it really resonated with me.
Winona Ryder.
Winona Ryder was in love with him, and he was too devilish, I guess would be the main Rich.
So are you Little Nicky in this scenario?
Yeah, I'd be the he had cool emo hair too. Which,
we're going to use the word cool there for sure. You firm on that one?
I'd be okay being some sort of spawn of Satan. A lot of cool powers. Like, I think,
your world, man, not mine. I'm going to go ahead and pass on that.
Christopher Kennedy asking an either or, but his name is Christopher, and I believe in supporting Chris's. McCollum and Randall, or Booker and Hayward on a DK single entry. For me, that'd be McCollum and Randall, but who would it be for you?
Same.
Okay. Let's see. Email, blah, 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 Trae Young, covered that. I just want to make sure we burn through. JW, this name I always start saying and I realize I just shouldn't say that one. Thoughts on Gary Payton, or are his minutes too unsecured? Low and pivot, I was thinking. You talked about him earlier, but Gary Payton, where are you landing with the crunches you're making right now?
I have all of the Gary Payton today. He's in basically everything I have.
I feel like a joke you would make if I said I had all the Gary Payton today would be like, his dad's stats don't count for him.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with it, but he's 3,800 on FanDuel, so I'm willing to take the shot.
Do CJ and Dame turn it over more than usual? Like, is that a thing?
I don't know. Never looked.
Not normally something I would care too much about, but they turn it over 13. Portland turns it over 13.4 times a game. I don't know. I guess, Gary can have all those. Why not? Sure. I'm playing him too. I don't care. Any cancer tonight? Ric Flair is okay is asking. I like the spot for him. The price doesn't work for me. So
I have zero cancer. Couldn't imagine getting there.
Yeah, that's fair. Josh was just talking about a death pool. How are you going to judge? Good point by I Am Universe. Man, the names today.
I miss my death pool, man.
It's dark.
I put a lot of work into that.
They say the one thing you're not allowed to predict, like for the radio shows that do predictions. I was listening to like some wrestling show doing it. And they're like, the one rule that people always have is you can't predict deaths. And I agree. That just seems too cynical for me.
You certainly can.
You can. Should you remain? Maybe if you're the spawn of Satan, you should.
You should see the email chains that I have for like the 3 or 4 years that we did the draft. I mean, it would be over like 2 or 3 weeks, and they're fantastic. If Gmail ever died, I would die inside.
It's kind of horrifying to know that I have like a decade worth of emails backlogged somewhere that the bandwidth just gets bigger each year.
Yeah, I have a lot of fucked up shit in my email.
It's not surprising. Kevin Z, one of our regulars, asking Anthony Davis and CJ McCollum or Booker and Embiid for DraftKings. What would you do there?
I would have you read off those names again at a slower rate of speed.
Anthony Davis and CJ McCollum or Booker and Embiid for DK. He also put it AD/CJ, which made my brain hurt. I would go AD and CJ though.
AD and CJ, Devin Booker, and someone.
And Joel Embiid. Joey Jojo.
Wow. I have them separated by 0.03 fantasy points combined. I think that the AD-CJ combination hits their ceiling just a little bit more. So give me AD and CJ, but that is about as close to a coin flip as you're going to get.
There you go. Eric B. Johnston asking for FanDuel GPP, prioritize Wizards players. How would you prioritize them for FanDuel in particular?
All I can do is just tell you what I have right now. 45% Isaiah, 45% Ish, 85% Gary Payton, 61% Troy Brown.
William Davis, thank you for the super chat. Just came through. Any sub 4K players on FanDuel you like besides Payton for a stud and dud tournament lineup? You mentioned that you're okay with Payton there. Anybody else under 4K on FanDuel that you would get?
Under 4K? Brad Wanamaker is the only answer that I have. He's the only guy that I have under 4K other than Gary Payton. Kent Bazemore I have, but he is 4K on the dot.
Okay.
We just got another ownership like 5 minutes ago, right?
We did
13 seconds ago, actually. Hot damn.
Also another one. Ownership coming out hot off the presses repeatedly. Ish Smith down a little bit. Here's a guy we didn't talk about who I was getting him in crunches, but I just kind of went the other way. But Kent Bazemore can be really highly owned on DraftKings. Is he a guy for you? Is he a guy you want at all? Because I'd rather go some other ways, but I get it. He's been starting and he gets minutes and he shoots enough, but I just wouldn't trust him as chalk.
I have an equal amount to the field of Kent Bazemore as of right now.
Okay. Yeah. That to me seems fair. Like even fair, definitely not a guy to be like, yeah, let me just get Kent Bazemore and there he's easy value. That's not how I would handle him. Which are the value players that you like the most in FanDuel? Pedrito PR asks. I feel like that's similar to the other questions, but different enough. So who would be the value guys you like the most on FanDuel?
FanDuel value, if we're talking like, I don't know how cheap we're actually trying to go here. Gary Payton, obviously. I mean, I don't have like a lot of I don't have guys under 4K. So it depends if we're talking under 5K, Isaiah, Ish, Gary Payton, Bazemore, PJ Tucker. That's about it. I'm not going all the way down like that today.
Let's see. Why would Nariki asking why would Frankie Smoke's ownership only be at 2.7% on our ownership on DK? Weird. Is this that? Let me just see where that landed.
Probably a little bit has to do with the fact that he's not very good, and the Knicks are, terrifying to roster. But at the same time, I don't know the answer. I would expect it to be higher than that.
He's up to 10% in the most recent run. I think maybe the uncertainty of the slate might be a factor in that, but
there's also a ton of value across the board now. So,
yeah, look, if he's going to be 10%, I would certainly have no issue with that at all. All right, and I don't have any issue with that because I'm playing more. Chris Chalfant in the premium Slack asking any interest in Jabari Parker. I don't have any, but I get what you're thinking.
I have zero interest in Jabari Parker.
Yeah, like John Collins being back in there makes it much easier to not even think about him. So I think not like for the team, not just for me. So I think that's why I wouldn't have an interest. But I think the way you're thinking about it is that the starters fail. Jabari comes off the bench, like kind of like the game that they had against Utah. I get it. I just don't think it's the right play for me, but I get it. Hayward and Harden or Embiid and Tatum for a DK GPP, Dadler 40 asks.
Ooh, Hayward and Harden.
I'd go Embiid and Tatum.
Not Hardem. That's
Jane's Hardem.
Jason Tatum and Embiid. That one's Hayward and Harden. Not particularly close either.
Okay. Interesting. Let's see what else we got here. Pedrito PR, I can play Ish Smith and Isaiah Thomas together on FanDuel. I would not do that, but Josh, do you have a thought?
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I wouldn't be trying to do that in 100 out of 150 lineups, but I don't see an issue with having them together. I think that they can play together. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they could even close the game together.
So here's a fun wrinkle. According to El Negro Loco is posting a tweet from Schmancy Schmabs.
Oh, no.
Elfrid Payton on his way to Phoenix to rejoin Knicks remains questionable Friday.
Motherfucker.
Well, that's not ideal. Seems hard for him to get there in time, but I will say one thing that if you'll recall, he did play for Phoenix and he also really came out hard against them the one time he returned to town after he got traded. Maybe he just really hates Phoenix still. Wants to be a part of this game.
Well, the good news is I don't have him at all on FanDuel, so I don't really give a shit from that regard if he gets there. The problem is I have 35% of him on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, look, the price looks good. I will
look, if he gets there, I late swap. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah.
If you're playing on FanDuel, I don't think you should have had him in to begin with. So, there's that. Now I just need to not fall asleep like I did yesterday.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some tinkering after the show on that one. So that's good. That's not helpful. Swap to Matthews from Frank. Morgan Smith is asking, would you swap to Garrison Matthews now that we have? I still wouldn't.
No,
out of stubbornness. Yeah, no. I mean, look, it makes your Frank shares more valuable now if he does end up starting and Payton doesn't get there. So that's how I'll sleep at night today. For FanDuel, would you go PJ Tucker or Daniel Tice?
See what I have more of. I have more PJ Tucker.
What do you think about PJ Tucker in general? Because I've seen a lot of PJ Tucker slander today, and I think he's certainly not a high usage guy, but in this kind of game against like a team like Philly who does have wings who defend well, does have a couple bigs who defend well, does guard at the rim well, those are the games I'm willing to take a stab on Tucker because they both need his defense and he's going to get some easy corner threes. But do you have a feel on Tucker for a slate like this? Like, I think the ownership is also just not bad enough where I also don't mind it.
Does he have high ownership on DraftKings?
No, but I think it looked like it was trending like it would come higher, and now it's now he's just at 10%.
I mean, it goes. He's always a decent value option when no value exists because his minutes are so firm. Once value comes out, he goes away.
Right. But I think on this, like in this particular matchup, I just don't mind the play. Like I just don't mind the play of him in general. If he were the chalk play of the day and we had no value, I think it's certainly a worse play, and I would have looked to go more ways. But yeah, I just don't mind. Having Tucker today in this particular kind of matchup too. Less rebounds, but he's going to get some threes. For a FanDuel GPP, would you go Cantor or Mahinmi?
FanDuel GPP, Cantor or Mahinmi?
Yep.
That would be Mahinmi. I don't have any Cantor, and I have 20% Mahinmi.
Okay.
That one's not close for me.
Let's see. What else do we have? Nothing good in the premium slack, it looks like. Ben Simmons or Tatum for a DK GPP. I would still go Tatum, but I don't mind Simmons, but I'd have more Tatum.
I have more Ben Simmons.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm a little bit higher on Ben Simmons right now. So.
Okay. Interesting. Let's see. Where else are we going? This sums up from Young King in the YouTube chat. I'm going Frank F the Knicks. Even when they don't do the stupid Knicks things, they still end up doing stupid Knicks things.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm leaving all of my Frank in until we find out. I don't have Ntilikina on FanDuel. I only have him on DraftKings, so I'm set up perfectly.
Yeah, it's certainly not ideal. We talk about a lot on these shows, but I certainly like to have my lineups done and ready to go for the most part when we're doing this stuff. But sometimes it happens this way, and what are you going to do?
By the way, we got asked about Isaiah Thomas and Ish Smith before on FanDuel. I have Ish Smith in 63 of my 150 lineups. I have Isaiah Thomas paired with him in 12. So that seems perfectly reasonable to me.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's an optimal play, I would think, to want those guys to both get there, but not crazy. Portland does play with decent pace and bad defense too, so it's certainly possible somebody gets there.
Based on their salaries, we're looking for 74 points combined for the two of them to hit their target scores.
William R. Wait, does McRae not starting affect his minutes? And he pasted that twice in one chat. And now he's just spamming it. Great. That's
no.
Now I feel bad for answering this, but it shouldn't affect his minutes. I wouldn't think. He's played 30 minutes off the bench too.
Yeah, it shouldn't matter. They just they don't have enough. Everybody's playing.
Yeah, you got like seconds left to lock, by the way, so get your lineups in. FanDuel GPP, Dame and Jabari Parker or Lonzo and Collins. Neither, but I would go Lonzo and Collins.
The first one.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, nothing good. People playing Elfrid Payton, sure, more power to you, I guess. Elfrid Payton has only played 38% of his questionable games. He's not playing. It's not an injury. It's a plane flight.
Yeah, no, he's not injured at all. This was personal something.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. For everybody asking right now who seems confused, he's possibly playing. We don't know yet. Keep your eye on the news. The expectation was he couldn't possibly get there in time. Apparently, he can possibly get there in time. Elfrid taking the private Elfrid Payton jet to get to the game. So who knows?
Look, Frank Ntilikina still played 23 minutes in their most recent game. I mean, even in the worst case scenario, he's probably going to be out there for 16 minutes or so. Best case scenario is he plays a lot more because Payton doesn't play. So it's not as if you're totally drawing dead.
Yep, that seems fair. All right, we'll do a quick round of Daddy Likes here before we call it quick for the work week. But make sure to hit that like button, guys. It's, as you can tell, like I'll just be candid with you guys, it's really fatiguing sometimes when we have many of these shows. And you try to turn the new year and you want like things to be a little bit less crappy, but we just keep showing up every day. So we appreciate you guys. And we hope that appreciation manifests itself on the other side of things. So hit that like button when you can. And also we appreciate the support from Fantasy Draft, a team over there that we love and adore because they help us put on so many shows on this channel. So go to fantasydraft.com right now. Use that promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for your free 7-day trial, which is going to be important to you because you're saving for your bankroll when you are playing on fantasydraft.com because all the concession fees go right to the winners. Hooters main event still going off for the NFL playoffs, so go check them out right now. This is the largest rake-free DFS contest you will find in the industry. All right, we got some daddy likes here, some Uncle Chubb / Uncle Spags likes. Guess who the top owned play is? And actually, I should tell you who the guys on the slate are right now.
I could look at my schedule. Okay, so 3 games. So going to be a lot of Wizards.
Yes, but you know what? The top owned play in the DK big tournament today is not a Wizard. Who do you think it is?
Marcus Smart?
Correct. How much?
41.
38. You're getting good at this game. Good job by you. Number 2 on the list. It is a Wizard. Who is it?
Ish Smith.
Jordan McRae at 36%. Number 3, another Celtic. Which Celtic?
Another Celtic.
Yep.
Don't tell me Brad Wanamaker.
No, not. No, I think
you never know with this shit. Another Celtic. I want to get it right. That's why I'm hypothesizing here. Jason Tatum.
It is in fact Gordon Hayward.
Okay.
With 31%. So yeah, people buying in. I think that's savvy to think that he picks up the assist upside. I think though people may look at the fact that he was getting like bigger assists when Kemba was out before without Marcus Smart. I think Smart coming in does change the equation a little bit there.
I have 6% Gordon Hayward on DraftKings today.
Yeah, I'm under on him too. I get it. I think he's a fine play because Atlanta gives up a little bit of everything. He's a guy who does a little bit of everything, but yeah, tough one. Another Wizard at number 4. Who is it?
Ish Smith.
It is in fact Troy Brown. Troy Brown coming in with 25% flat. We'll run through the rest of these guys. Kendrick Nunn right behind him at 23%. Ish coming in now 22.3%. Still pretty highly owned.
Well, I had 60.
You are the biggest Ish believer in the world.
Apparently.
I get it. He's getting the minutes. Jason Tatum, 18%. Garrison Matthews at 14.7%. Anzejs Pashniks at 14.3%. I would prefer Pashnik's ownership personally.
I would prefer to not have either one of those guys like I currently do. Actually, that's not true. I have 6% Pashniks.
Okay, yeah, I have more than that. I actually don't know how much I ended up with because I tinkered with some things, but I like the idea of Pashniks. I think the real risk, though, is that Mahimi just stays out there against Whiteside and you don't get to him, but certainly some ways that you could see him get some big run. Gary Payton coming in behind him at 14%. Kent Bazemore, a little bit less chalky than we had him at, rounded up 14%. Tyler Harrow at 13%. Daniel Tice at 13%. That one I see the idea behind because DVP-wise, it is a really good center matchup, but man, that is a risky 13%.
It is.
CJ McCollum at 13%. I like that quite a bit. Think he's got some big upside in the spot. Jimmy Butler, 13%. That's also fair. Pretty decent value on him. Bam Adebayo, 11%. Terrence Ross, 9%. Minutes have been there for him. He just hasn't excelled, but we'll get the minutes again with Isaac out, which I learned today. Thanks, Joe. Damian Lillard, 8.5%. Also, that happened on New Year's Day. You know what I was not doing New Year's Day? Watching the Orlando Magic game. So,
I was.
John Collins, 7.5%. Aaron Gordon got up to 7.4%. Wow. Man, there's so many dudes here. Did anybody play themselves? Fournier stands. Everybody step up, 5.2%. Alex Len, 2%. Duncan Robinson. Oh, man. So close the other night, 2%. Kem Birch, 2%. Jesus. Nobody play themselves? Bradley Beal, 0.07%. Congratulations to all those fine people out there. They did, in fact, play themselves. So, sorry. All right. Josh, anything you want to plug here before we close it up for the night?
Not at all.
Yeah, me neither, actually. I'm not doing any shows this weekend for the first time since NFL season started. So this is pretty sad. Are you doing any shows this weekend?
I don't know, maybe.
All right. Well, hey, I'm not. So let's plug that, but let's plug all the other shows on the channel. We do have the NBA Live Before Lock coming up this weekend. We have NFL Live Before Lock before the playoffs start tomorrow. We also have On the Contrary, which we did earlier today with Brick75, another top 10 player. We also talked about that. I wouldn't say controversial, but the viral Ricky D tweet, another top player who's we talked about his NFL losses, had Josh, I don't know if you saw this. He had a 600K profit that swung to a 400K loss.
I did see it, but not because I have the ability to. I am banned from his tweets.
What'd you do to him?
Absolutely nothing. I don't interact with anybody on Twitter. I got caught in the Fantasy Cruncher crosshairs, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think he was one of those people who was not happy with that. But anyway, interesting tweet there. We talked about it on the contrary because I thought it'd be interesting to get the takes that both Alex and Brick had. Brian Hooper is his actual name. Go follow him on Twitter at Brian Hooper with 2 underscores. He does YouTube content as well.
I'll tell you what, the people that don't understand how to use to read a graph should all quit DFS right now. Or the people that thought, why don't you just quit when you're up $600,000? You should also quit DFS right now too.
Yeah, that does kind of run in the face of how the whole process works. But
yeah. As if he knew that that's where the graph was going to cut off.
Yeah, look, I think just watch the video, listen to those guys' takes, hear how 2 pros think about it. But some bankroll management stuff may be important to look at, the game plan primers we talk about. But I thought it's an interesting topic and one where I think if you're not paying full attention, you might be horrified. Or if you are paying full attention, you might be like, I think there are people out there who just really wanted that to be like, oh, this is the downside of it. And it's like, yeah, it sucks. But it's also like, there's other factors that go into everything.
It was a really interesting read, like from a tweet perspective and for him putting it out there.
Yeah, look, candor always going to be on the positive side of things, but check it on the contrary. Anyway, point being, we talked about it on there. But we appreciate all you guys watch the content all weekend long. Hope you have a great 2020. Again, just bring some positive energy, man. It's exhausting doing this every day. It's exhausting getting one day off and getting right back into the grind. So we're doing the best we can, but we appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great weekend. See you again soon. Good luck.